And welcome back to another Queer Money follow-up. Today, we're talking again about real estate investment. We're going a little bit further in depth than what we've gone before so far. So our first question to you today is, are you a spectator with money? And are you a spectator with life? How's that for a dramatic open? Are you a spectator with money? And are you a spectator with life?
Right. I think was it Brene Brown in her probably most well-known talk asked the question, are you in the arena? And I actually think she was quoting Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Theodore.
All those people who are not in the arena have no fucking right to criticize you when you're in the arena doing the work, right? If you're standing on the sidelines, if you're sitting in the cheap seats,
keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
So in episode 59, we talked with Mindy Jensen Mindy Jensen is a prolific real estate investor, and she's actually one of the influencers at Bigger Pockets. She creates a lot of content, most specifically podcasting, but she does do some videos and writing for them. And the Queer Money episode number 59 title was Making Money with Real Estate Investing. And so Mindy has been investing in real estate since 1998.
1989.
It
was 1989 because I remember you talking about that you weren't even out of college or out of high school yet.
Out of high school, but she's not much. I think she's only a year or two older than I am.
Right. So she was actually in college when she bought her first property.
Right.
And it wasn't necessarily as an investment. It was because she was just tired of paying rent. She just did not like the idea of her money going to someone else to help them build their real estate empire. She decided that she wanted to accumulate that money herself.
And this is definitely an episode to listen to. Mindy shares a ton of investment strategies, and specifically with real estate, but also with taxes, that we could all benefit from knowing and maybe even utilize, as we'll discuss here a little bit shortly. There are all different kinds of ways to get into real estate investing. Mindy's specific strategy is she openly admits it. I buy ugly houses, she says. And then
she really basically said, when you buy ugly homes, and she definitely is not the person, when you see those billboards that say I buy ugly houses, that's not her. But the idea is that when you buy a home that is not in pristine shape, there's upside potential, right? When you buy a home that's perfect, it's probably selling at or above market value, especially in the market that we're in right now.
Right. So she buys these ugly houses. She and her husband and her two children move into the ugly house. She and her husband spend about the next 2 years fixing them up. And then after they've crossed the 2-year mark, they move out and rent it for at least the next 3 years, because by that point, once that 5-year time frame has passed and they've lived in it for at least 2 years, but they've owned it for at least 5 years, then they sort of cross a loophole that allows you to sell that real estate property without having to pay any capital gains, which saves a ton of money, especially if, as David talked about, you buy a somewhat ugly house, you fix it up, and not only do you have regular market appreciation, but you also have the appreciation from the investments that you made in it.
Right. Capital gains, just a reminder, capital gains is basically when you buy something and then turn around and sell it for a profit. Basically, the government says that's income, and we deserve our piece. Exactly. I don't know if that's true, but they quote unquote deserve their piece, so they want their piece. Well, this is a way for you to say, not on this one, bitches.
Not on my
this
watch.
Is mine, right? So it's a great, as John mentioned, this is a great way to accumulate or grow without having to pay taxes on this. It's a great way to grow your investments rather quickly.
And Mindy says, oops, that's the wrong, look at me not knowing what I'm doing.
2 nights in a row.
I know, it's like I had some wine or something. Mindy says, and we're learning this ourselves, there is a boatload of money to be made in real estate investing if you know what you're doing, if you do it right, she says.
Right.
And this is something we're gonna tackle a little bit here. We're currently reading the Millionaire Real Estate Investor, which is written by Gary Keller, for those of you who are familiar with The One Thing. And I've currently got it bookmarked with the 4 Principles of a Debt-Free Life.
That book right back
bookmark.
there.
And we're learning a ton from it. But what we wanted to share with you all is what he talks about are his four investment profiles.
Yeah.
He says that there are basically four investment profiles of real estate investors, and these all make sense to us, and we agree with what we've read. But we think that there's actually a fifth investment profile, and one that a lot of LGBTQ people are a part of, and what we want to sort of highlight and maybe encourage folks maybe break out of where they are so they can get into that space of becoming a real estate investor. Because as we've talked about seemingly almost every one of these follow-ups lately, because we've talked about retirement, because we've talked about improving people's quality of life, and because we've talked about creating a cash flow system so that you're not reliant on an income, but you have cash flow from your investments that are subsidizing your quality of life and hopefully enhancing that quality of life. A critical component of that is real estate investing. And so that's why we want to help encourage LGBTQ folks who are sort of sitting on the sidelines, spectators as we're calling it, to get into not only real estate investing, but entrepreneurship and investing in the stock market.
Right.
So Gary Keller says in his book, there are four types of investment profiles, specifically with real estate. One, there is the observer. The observer is someone who buys all the books, listens to all the podcasts, probably has the Bigger Pockets app on their phone. They may even have an account to Bigger Pockets. They do all the research. They go to all the conferences. They know all the stuff, but they never buy anything. They just consume all the information. They talk a big talk, but they don't actually do the walk.
We all know these kind of people, right? These were the kids on the playground who talked a big game, but then they never got in the game, right? These are the individuals, and we know these kinds of individuals in our daily life today, probably especially some of our colleagues at work, how they talk about what they do or what they have outside of their work life and how amazing it is, and then we really find out that it's not truly the case.
Exactly. Then there is the speculator. And this is, I think, the person who gets all the news. They love the action. They buy without doing the research. They buy at inappropriate times. They make the news in part because they make the biggest mistakes. I guess the best example of this right now that's not necessarily real estate investing, but is investment related, is probably what we're all the news that came out recently about GameStop and Robinhood. You had some people who were manipulating the market, maybe for populist reasons and maybe for justifiable reasons. But then all of a sudden, GameStop is making all sorts of news, and a whole bunch of people who never invest otherwise suddenly thought, well, I need to hop in here and take advantage of my wins.
Right. People who came to the party late, right? If you're showing up based on the news, you're coming to the party late. And those are the individuals who oftentimes end up losing the most.
Yeah. We just got two messages. We got one from Ness from Spain. Hi, Ness. We love Spain, and
yes.
It's been
Sitges.
We just our year anniversary of having left living in Sitges for 3 months just happened earlier this week, so we're a bit sad.
Yeah.
H.W. Miller says real estate is a great opportunity to make money. Just need to be cautious and not having too much of a specific asset in your allocation. Exactly, 100% agreed. Diversification is something everyone needs to think about, and that's exactly why we encourage people to invest in real estate, because I think when most people think about investing, they're thinking about the stock market. And while you can definitely diversify within the stock market, there is some sort of lack of diversification there if you're not investing in other areas. And that's why we talk about real estate investing, but also investing in creating your own business.
Right.
So the third type of investor profile is the collector. This is the person who, they maybe even call themselves a real estate investor, but they've got like one or two properties, and they hold them because they're very proud of having them, but they're not actually investors. At most, they may be making a little bit of income off of that, but they're not really meeting the true definition of investor. They're a holder. They're a buy and holder. They're a collector. They're not really actively trading or actively making money off of their real estate investing.
I think that there's probably quite a few people in this category who have purchased vacation homes with the intent to rent them out on Airbnb, but just never get around to turning it actually into an investment property.
Right.
Or they don't do the research to figure out what it is to make that property profitable. They just purchase something with the idea of, we're going to buy this and we're going to turn it into an investment property. But they buy it because they want it, not because it's what is right for real estate investing.
Right. And I think they probably dabbled in the idea of becoming an Airbnb, but then they hear the news about how much of a nightmare Airbnbs can be, because, people are always happy whenever you talk about any kind of investing. any kind of business, people are always happy to tell you all the bad stories they've heard, to caution you about all the drama that they've read about and heard about in the news, and they don't want you to make that mistake.
I think that there's the polar ends, right? Just like with politics right now, there's the polar ends, right? You have the people who are they've had the bad experience, and they're going to tell you the worst thing. This is the worst thing. Don't ever do this. And then you have the people who are super successful, and they're out there telling everybody, you can do it just like I've done. And then there's the rest of us in the middle who are like, I don't know which one to pay attention to. I'm scared, especially if you are the spectator or the observer or the speculator. You're like, okay, I want to get in the game, but I don't know what to do, or you just are scared.
And I've just learned a new trick. Look, I can when people comment, I can add the comment to the broadcast.
Oh, there you go.
Look at how cool that is. I just learned that trick. So thank you guys for entertaining me. The fourth type of investor or profile is the investor, the actual person who they love the opportunity with investing. They do the homework. They research. They have a criteria for the type of investment they want to get into. They know what the terms and conditions are that they're looking for. They do the education. They do the planning. Everything is strategic. This doesn't guarantee that they don't lose, but they don't often lose. And when they lose, they win. They learn from that loss. And so they're not actually losing. They're falling forward,
right,
as we call it.
And I'll add, if you're interested in hearing about someone who is doing this really well, join us for, I want to say it's episode 253 of the Queer Money Podcast. It'll be out on March 16th.
David is working a lot from memory right now, so all of this is fungible.
Right. So we interviewed Patricia Redhawk, who is in the process of right now building a $5 to $6 million investment portfolio. She already has millions of dollars in property, but she's building a specific portfolio for a specific reason. And she is one of the first queer women to be out there investing in real estate and wants to teach and help other queer people do this. So make sure you download and listen to episode 253.
And also buy a book that she's a co-author of called The Only Woman in the Room.
Right. The Only Woman in the Room. And I can't remember the rest of the title. It's got one of those long, really long. Basically the book is, and I love this book because it gave so many great stories of women who were the only women in the room when it came to real estate investing. Real estate investing is heavily weighted towards men. But there is a book written about how this small group of women are really supporting each other. And basically what Patricia wants to do is basically do the same thing, reprint that model with the queer community.
Yay, love that. So yeah, definitely look out for that. We have a comment from Allison. Allison says, "What if you make a bad landlord? We tried rental real estate and we didn't know the rules to follow, so we never actually really made it cash flow." And so I would say that you probably didn't necessarily meet the definition of an investor as per Gary Keller. You were maybe more of a speculator. So you maybe got into the wrong property, or you didn't have the right terms negotiated, or you simply just didn't know what you were doing with the day-to-day management. What I am learning in all the work that I've been reading and the things that we've been watching and the coaching that we've been getting is that you make your money in real estate typically when you make the purchase.
Yes.
And this is something that most people don't think about. They think that they make the real money month to month with the income, or also at the end when they make the sale. But that's not necessarily the case, at least per the professionals, and we will find out soon.
Right. I think you do bring up, Allison, you do bring up a good point that not everyone is the best landlord. Right. Mm-hmm. And what we are finding out is that there are so many services out there that can help you be a great investor and have everything else taken care of by someone else.
Right.
And one of the things that's what a lot of websites around real estate investing or books around real estate investing are encouraging you to do is use these services to kind of use them as training wheels to get yourself educated, to understand. And you're going to find out that there are certain aspects of real estate investing or any type of investing that you're not necessarily good at, right? You may not be great at picking the right home. So you need a real estate agent who is great at picking real estate investments, right? So you're going to find that there are things you're good at, and you're going to find things that other people are good at, and you want them to be your power team.
Exactly. Well, and we were just on a webinar with Brandon Turner of Bigger Pockets yesterday, and he said very few people score with their first one or two investments. For most people, that's really that's their learning curve. That's a lot of education. But he did say that the biggest problem that most people have is that they don't actually create any momentum because they get scared to actually make the purchase, to actually dive into the real estate market. But he said making your biggest purchase is also often your first investment is often the biggest hurdle. And then when you actually do that, you can use that to create momentum to buy more investments.
Yeah.
So what we would argue then, and what we would add to Gary Keller's list of 4 investment profiles is a fifth one. And that's what we would say is the spectator. This is the person who does nothing, buys nothing, makes nothing, and says that money is hard. And based on the people that we work with, the people that reach out to us, we kind of think a lot of the LGBT community is sort of on the sidelines, not really taking advantage of these kinds of opportunities, because so many folks reach out to us and say that money is so hard, making money is so hard, and if that's what you think, that's what it's going to be.
Right. I think that one of the interesting things here is that a lot of times the individuals in the spectators group, as we mentioned, the Brene Brown quote from before, the individuals who are in the cheap seats who are shouting out and criticisms to individuals who they themselves have never done anything. I think that these individuals are oftentimes the ones that have that negative money story, the money story that rich people are bad, that earning money is hard, that it's too much work. All of those kinds of money stories are the money stories that basically make people climb up into the cheap seats and just sit back and say, I'm not going to do this. This is way too hard. This is not good. I don't want to be a rich person, right? And so and
rich people are bad.
Right. Yeah. They have basically retracted, and that's why they are the spectators. And one of the things that we want to encourage or think is a huge opportunity for LGBT people is that we have oftentimes this desire to help people. And that's one of the things that when you're a real estate investor, yes, you're making money, but you are also helping people find a home. To find a home that works for them, right? Every business has a service level to it. And when you are a real estate investor, you are basically a business that is servicing other people. So we have a huge opportunity and can do this. And I think one of the misnomers or the fallacies that a lot of people have when it comes to real estate investing is that you have to have a lot of money. When we were listening to Brandon Turner last night on the webinar, he bought his first investment property with none of his own money and ended up making $50,000 off of it when he turned around and sold it. And that was because he educated himself and connected with the right people. We're all good at that, right? As a community, we're good at connecting with people. We don't necessarily have a lot of money, or maybe we don't have a lot of money to invest. That doesn't mean it needs to hold you back from doing this.
Exactly. And he's not talking necessarily about the 2008 zero money down, zero interest ARMs for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's more strategic strategy to that. And I want to add HW's next comment here, and I'm loving this new feature. Landlords need to be cautious of the tenants. There have been numerous issues recently of tenants not paying, and because of COVID, they are unable to evict them. Just need to be educated before venturing into becoming a landlord, need to be able to carry the cost of house if the rental income stops. And that's 100% true, and exactly what we're talking about. And the distinction between the investor and the speculator, and maybe even the collector to some degree, is that you do your work, you're being strategic, you're doing the education, and the argument that we've been reading from the books we've been reading and the webinars we've been going to and the coaching that we've been getting is a lot of people don't actually do the homework before they get involved with it, and so to that extent they're kind of the spectator, and then they have a bad experience, and then that's what they share with everybody, and then it kind of keeps people on the sidelines and creates more spectators, which is what we're concerned about with seeing a lot of LGBTQ people is sort of in the spectator seats. And this doesn't necessarily mean that it's always a smooth ride provide for everybody, right? I mean, nobody necessarily planned for a pandemic, and nobody has that much emergency savings set aside, and nobody's prepared to receive that kind of month-to-month income from their real estate investments, especially if they're a landlord. So there are some anomalies there, but you're doing it strategically, and you definitely have, and this has been reinforced over and over again. You've got your personal emergency savings, but you also got your business emergency savings. So that helps us kind of soften the blow.
Exactly.
So with all that in mind, it's kind of with the idea that we make money as hard as we want it to be. There's a quote that I got from The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller, which he got from Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And what's really fascinating is Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad, Poor Dad came up a lot during this term when we were in our second year of the Queer Money podcast. So we're revisiting those for the Queer Money follow-up series here. But it's also interesting how we're doing new things and actually having new interviews where that's coming up again. It's just amazing how many people who have become financially independent, who have fired and all that good stuff, still refer to Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's like almost like no other book ever needs to be written. And so Robert Kiyosaki's quote is, "Money will be any." Oops, so many things going on, including all the things that I want to say. Is it that one?
3.
Where's 3?
Oh, you didn't download
I didn't add it.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, Robert Kiyosaki said, "Money will be anything you want it to be. If you think money's hard to get, it will be. If you say you have to work real hard for money, you'll work real hard for it. If you say it takes money to make money, then that's the world that you'll live in. But if you say there's plenty of money and I can make as much of it as I want, that is also true. Money is anything you want it to be." And I thought that was very profound, because we know that from our own experience. We know that from the people that we work with, is that money is as hard as we decide to make it. Now, so many people will come to us and say, no, this is the biblical truth that money is hard, or that money is evil, and all that. And it is, if that's what you believe it to be. Investing in real estate, investing in the stock market, having your own business is as hard as you make it to be.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be ups and downs, right? There is no path that is just a continual straight up path, except for Atlas rolling his
Except for my marriage with you.
rolling the boulder up the hill, right? There's always going to be ups and downs, but the general direction is up. When you have this kind of attitude or this kind of mentality, the general direction is up, that you are improving, that you can take a small amount of money and turn it into a larger amount of money, and turn that into even a larger amount of money that funds the life that you want, that allows you to become independent financially. And that is, I think a huge opportunity for folks in the LGBT community to think that we as a community, in massive numbers of individuals in our community, we can and deserve to be financially independent just like anyone else.
100% agree. Hear, hear. So thank you for joining us for another Queer Money Follow-Up. Here's your Queer Money Follow-Up takeaway from this episode. Go to debtfreeguys.com/happy and download your free guide of the 5 building blocks of a happy gay life. Oops, I don't know what I'm doing here. Very tough day. And then in the comment section, let us know. We would love to hear whether you're a spectator with money, or if you're a spectator in life, or if not, or if you're the master of your destiny.
Right.
I'd like to hear that too.
Yeah. And then join us tomorrow, episode 60 of the Queer Money Follow-Up, Queer Money Podcast, where we had an amazing conversation with Patrick Riley. Patrick was someone that we had the opportunity to be on the same stage with when we spoke at Prudential back in 2017.
It seems like yesterday, but it also seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. And Patrick had the privilege and opportunity to work as one of the producers of the Oprah Winfrey Show, and he himself was actually profiled during a segment about when you knew you were gay, and that's how he came out to many members of his family. Was on national television in front of 32 million people. He basically talked about his personal story, and we learned a ton from this interview, as well as from the conversation that we had with him when we were at the event in New Jersey, I think it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's a great interview. So we'll be excited to cover that tomorrow. tomorrow. Then lastly, but not leastly, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel, whatever channel you're on, and then please set notifications on this channel so you can continue to join in on the conversation. I have to say, it has been phenomenal to have HW and Allison and Ness all join in on the conversation. It makes it funner for us. And someday, if we do it enough, I'll be able to get good at all the technology and it'll be a lot smoother. So thank you all for participating and for watching and listening. And thank you for your time. We will see you tomorrow.